Erasure is not inclusivity. It's the slogan of my blog and the context behind this deep dive that we're going to take today into the world of TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, cis women, transgender women, and the ever-evolving question of whether a trans woman is a woman. The first thing I want to say is that this isn't a cut, dry thing. There are nuances to the situation. And one of the nuances that I've discovered is some people in the transgender community accidentally alienating certain female allies that they have or that want to support them. And it's because they don't understand this key core thing about boundaries and about this idea that that erasure is not inclusivity. I've talked with many women, both trans, both OG, natural, and what I've discovered is that there is a type of inclusivity that can hurt people, an inclusivity that seeks to supplant someone else's experience or encroach on what someone's experience has always naturally been. I want to start out first by saying that there are two types of women. Let's just put it simply. Let's ignore the title of trans, cisgender, etc. Let's just call it for what it is. There are two types of women. There's one woman who has had their body, brain, lived experience, gender identity, and private parts all in sync from the moment of birth, without question, without any type of conflict, and without having to alter themselves in any way. This is the OG woman, the unaltered woman, the source of womanhood, the core of womanhood. And then there's a second type of woman, a woman who had to alter or make alterations to get to the level of womanhood that they are today. Both of these are valid women. However, one is more foundational and core compared to the other. And it's this distinction and the lack of respect for this distinction that inadvertently causes certain transgender people and women to alienate their female allies. Because a lot of the times they will pigeonhole someone with this boundary into the idea of being a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist, when in reality, they're not exclusionary towards trans women at all. What they're trying to distinguish is that natural born women never had to alter themselves. That is a unique experience. That is an experience at the core of womanhood that needs to be preserved. But when you don't respect that experience, when you try to override that experience or pretend as if there is no difference between someone who had to alter themselves to reach womanhood versus someone who has naturally, unalteredly embodied that state of being a woman, that is where the problem comes. Sometimes female allies just want respect for that distinction and that boundary. They are women, and then there are also trans women. They're not trying to say that trans women aren't women. They're not trying to exclude trans women. What they're trying to say is, this is my experience of being a woman. I did not have to alter anything. Please do not infringe on my experience. Please do not take over my experience. Because in that capacity, it's almost as if the idea of being a trans woman now comes at the expense of being a woman, if that makes sense. I just want to put this out there because while I myself am not a trans radical exclusionary feminist. However, I do support women. And while I wouldn't call myself a feminist either, I do understand women's rights and why a woman would want to protect this experience for herself. The goal of the trans woman community or transgender community should be to live in coexistence with women, not want to supplant them or erase them. Your experience as a woman shouldn't come at the cost of the original or unaltered experience of being a woman. That's all I wanted to say. It's a difficult thought to explain, but these type of distinctions and respect for these boundaries can mean the difference between us peacefully embracing each other's differences versus it being a tug of war and a struggle. Thanks again. Listen to Tone Truths, and I'll probably come back for another one.